Hey guys, it's Kelly, and today I'm going to share with you my recent reads. So these are the last 4 books that I have read. And before I do that, I just want to say I am in the parking lot of the preschool where I dropped my 3-year-old off for her very first day of preschool. And for any of you guys out there that are moms, it does give a little ping to the heart to see her just like run in there. I mean, like, I had to like be like, are you gonna give mommy a hug? Like, she just ran in, like, no big thing, which is great. I'm so glad that she is going to have fun and make friends and be involved in something, because we're doing this move transition and this will help her really get settled into being here. But it is also sad to see your baby just go off without even saying goodbye, like, la da da. But I'm sure she's gonna have a great time. So like I said, I'm just sitting in the parking lot because we have a couple hours. Eliza's in the back and we're gonna go grocery shopping and stuff, but I really wanted to get this video done because I have read 4 books in the last couple weeks. 3 of them were part of the TBR Jar Readathon hosted by Dusk Angel Reads, and so it's kind of my wrap up from that readathon too. So I'll start with those 3 books and then I'll do the single book that I read outside of the readathon. And so for the TBR Jar Readathon, it's like where I drew out of a jar my books. If you saw my vlog, I'll link it down below, of my journey for the week. But I specifically put in there books that I had already read, like, part of. I had gotten halfway through some of these books and set them down for one reason or another. I'll probably state the reason in this wrap up. And decided that this would, like, doing the TBR jar and pulling it out and having to read it would encourage me to read these books and either to DNF them or finish them. And I ended up finishing all 3 of the ones that I pulled out that week. I didn't DNF any of those. And so I'm making progress on those unfinished books, which feels good. And the first one I read for the TBR Jar Readathon was A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. And this is a really popular fantasy book. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be adult. Like, I thought I've heard from a lot of people that it's supposed to be classified as adult fantasy. I know she writes both adult and young adult. And for me, this read very young adult. So if it's meant to be an adult, that could be an issue. But if you go into it thinking young adult, I think that you would find it better. And a lot of people just love this series and don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. I found it just kind of average, this first book. I would rate it a 3.5, so just a little bit above average. And the reason I had started this book and kind of put it aside was the first whole half for me was just exposition. And hold on, my baby's crying, so let me get her a little food and then I'll come back. So sorry for the interruption. I gotta keep her happy so she doesn't cry through this. So in this exposition part that takes up like the first 100 or so pages, I didn't feel like there was much plot at all, so there wasn't anything like keeping me driving through it, so I kept putting the book down, and that's why I had trouble like getting into the story. And during this exposition we learn about the kind of the world that we are in. I'm sure you probably have heard of this before since this is a really popular fantasy, but there's 4 Londons, so there's all these worlds, and the worlds have been shut off from each other, and our main character, Kel, is one of the only people that can travel between the worlds. And so we're learning about Kel and how he goes in the worlds, like he travels from each of the, worlds that he's able to at the beginning, and so we learn about each of the worlds and the people that he interacts with in each of those. And so we're introduced to a lot of people and a lot of what's going on, which it's an interesting concept. I just really didn't have that plot that was driving me through the beginning half of the book. And then finally, when I picked it up for the TBR Jar Readathon, it was like at the point where the plot was picking up and he and Lila were interacting, who is one of the other main characters. And when those two start interacting, I got more interested. And then the rest of the book, I was like interested and having fun reading it, but I wasn't like blown away. I just found it an enjoyable read the rest of the time. And so I'm going to continue on. I haven't read this, picked the second one up yet, but I'm not like super excited about it, because it wasn't like a 4 to 5 star read for me. It was just kind of average. So I'm hoping that it picks up as it goes along so that I will get more interested in it. And so the other thing that so the long exposition and world building was like a con for me, and the other thing that kind of brought it down for me was that I felt that there was a lot of fights, like magical fights, like, or real fights of 2 people like interacting with each other and like fighting during the book, And I felt like by the second or third fight, I knew exactly how every fight was going to go. It became very formulaic for me, that I was like, okay, I know exactly like this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen. And it didn't feel like there was a lot of surprises in the like fights and interactions, because she just built a formula. I really hope that changes in the next book, because if that's the way all the magical fights are going to go, I don't find that suspenseful or exciting. The things that I did really like, and what kept me from like DNFing it, was I really liked the interaction between Lila and Kel. They were really good two main characters, and I enjoyed them, and so I hope they interact more in the future. So that's all for that one. The next book I read for the TBR Readathon, TBR Jar Readathon, was The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. Sorry I don't have any of these books physically, because they were all library books or like ebooks, so I'll try to put a picture of them up. And this one I mostly read on audiobook, and the audiobook is excellent. The guy who narrates it, Hugh Fraser, he narrates a lot of Agatha Christie novels, and I really enjoy his narration. And so I did read physically parts of the book, and I find that I enjoy the audiobook much better. So I would suggest it on the audiobook if you have access to it, which is on Scribd if you are a member of Scribd, the audiobook app. And this is a Hercule Poirot book of Agatha Christie, and I had read one a couple months ago, so if you watched me review that one, I wasn't really excited about Poirot. Like, as a character, I didn't really enjoy him and his interactions with Hastings, who are the two like main people in his novels. But in this one, I liked him a lot better. So I'm hoping that that other one, it was just because it was early in the series and she was still developing the character, and this ABC Murders is farther down. And I picked this one up specifically because people have rated it as like one of the best Poirot novels. So I thought, well, I'll try this one and see if I can get back into him as a character. And I did really enjoy it. So I feel like maybe The Mysterious Affair of Styles, that first book I read that was starring Poirot, might have just been like a glitch for me. Like, maybe that just wasn't as interesting of a story and his character wasn't developed enough. But this one I really enjoyed. And the mystery was good. I don't want to tell you a lot because, you know, mystery books, you don't want to give away a lot. But basically, at the beginning, Poirot gets a letter from a murderer, basically saying a murder is about to happen, and it's signed ABC, and so that's the murderer's name. And so like that starts us on this journey of Poirot and Hastings trying to solve the ABC murders, and you know, they interact with the police and people involved in the murders and all that stuff. And I did really enjoy this one. The mystery kept me guessing. There are like little clues along the way, which I love when you can kind of get little clues and like make guesses, but I did not like guess the ending. And Agatha Christie does have this way of like waiting till the very end and then like dumping a bunch of like solutions onto you. And though I don't love that, and that's why I don't give her books 5 stars usually, this one I felt there were enough clues along the way that it didn't feel like, oh, Poirot's holding everything back. That he did give us stuff to kind of try to figure it out, and then we got the final clues at the end to put it all together. And so I did enjoy that. And that's why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5, because like I said, I don't really love to get all the dump at the end, but I did feel this was better than some other ones I've read by her that didn't give any clues along the way. And then the last one I read for the TBR Jar Readathon was These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. And this is the first in a trilogy. I think it's called the Starbound trilogy, and this came out a while ago, and this is a YA sci-fi romance, I would say, because it is sci-fi, but it's heavy on the romance. So I think you need to like both in order to like it. So if you're somebody that likes YA romance and you want to just get into sci-fi, I would recommend it. And then if you're a sci-fi fan that doesn't mind a big romance plot, then I would highly suggest it, because I really enjoyed it. And I had originally kind of DNF'd this book. I had read about, I mean, it was almost a year ago now, I had started reading this because I liked the Illuminae files that also Amy Kaufman contributed to. So I thought I would try her other books, and I started it. I got about 80%, and then something happened that made me really angry in the plot, so I put it down, and I didn't pick it back up. And I never really like fully said I'm never gonna pick it back up, but I just took a long time. And then since it had been so long, I started over, and this time I pushed through that thing that made me angry and waited for the like what was going to happen next, and it turned out that the book was really interesting as a whole. So if you get to a part in the book where you get really angry, then just keep going and don't put it down like I did, because it does, like, I'm not going to say like it resolves, I'm just saying that it does as a whole is a good story. So yeah, and I think I like this better after reading all the Illuminae files, because I had picked this up right after the first one, and then I think after reading all three, I'm getting Amy Kaufman's style, and this doesn't, I mean, it isn't like multimedia like Illuminae files was, but it is similar writing in the fact that like there's a lot of twists and turns that you don't necessarily see, and that don't seem like they fit together, and then we get a whole picture later on, and then I think they're very similar, the series, same way Illuminae files are. I think it is where we follow different people in each series, and maybe they intertwine and stuff like that. So I rated it 4.5 stars because I did really enjoy it once I got to the end. And I'm trying to think if there's I have notes. So there is a little bit of mystery. There's the interaction between the two main characters that I really like, of them building a relationship. And I also listened to this on narration, and there's 3 narrators for this, because there's a narrator for the girl, the guy, and then there's like a third party that's like doing an interview, and he also has a separate narrator. And so then it's narrated by Cynthia Holloway, Jonathan McLean, and Sarge Anton. And I've looked a little bit, and I think that some of those narrators also work on the Illuminae files. There's like a group cast for that, so they must like the whole franchise kind of thing, all of her books. And I think they did an excellent job on the narration, because sometimes with YA books, you have like adults reading and it sounds like an adult and not anywhere near like a 19-year-old, and I don't like that, where these two felt like they could be teens, like with their voices. So it didn't feel like a really old person reading a 17 and 19-year-old person. So I like that. And so those are the 3 books I read for that readathon. And then I read one other book, and I actually read this before the readathon, but I'm just putting it at the end because it's kind of separate. And this was a thriller, I don't know how to categorize this, is Behind Your Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, which this has kind of gone around a little bit, and you don't want to know a lot about the plot, because, being a thriller kind of book, part of the point is all the twists and turns. And the reason I picked this book up was because I was watching a review by Natasha at My Reading is Odd, and she was saying that she guessed the ending, and that I guess this is an ending that like hardly anybody guesses the ending or expects the ending, and they're shocked by it. So I was like really curious. I was like, I wonder if I can guess the ending, because Natasha did it. I was like, but a lot of people in her comments even were saying, no way did I guess the ending. And I'm always like really intrigued by that when there's a book that a lot of people don't see the ending coming. I'm always like, I want to know if I could see it coming. So that's why I picked up the book, like without really knowing the plot. I just wanted to have a thriller that I wouldn't be able to guess at the ending and see if I would be surprised. And I ended up giving this 3.5 stars because I'll explain. So I don't want to explain anything about the plot really, like just very bare basics. It's about a main character who meets, she's divorced, she meets a man in a bar to kind of like get out there and meet men, and they end up making out. And then the next day she comes to work and finds out that the man she made out with is her new boss, who is married. So that's the only plot you really want to know. And so there's that whole interaction with them having to work together, which is awkward. She meets the wife, which is awkward, and like, so the interaction between the 3 of them. And a lot of it is we don't know who's telling the truth, who's a reliable narrator, all that. So that, because there's multiple perspectives in the novel. The beginning, I was really intrigued. We're like, we're not sure who's telling the truth. By the middle, I'm like, drag. Nothing's getting answered. We're just getting more questions. More weird stuff is happening. And then we get to the end. I did guess the ending, and I was like, and yes, she went there. So I'm not obviously going to tell you the ending, because a lot of people really do not guess the ending. Though I have to say, there are clues along the way that foreshadow the ending, so I'm surprised not more people guess it, but I guess you have to think weird. So as long as you're okay with a little weird, I think it's an enjoyable read. So I gave it 3.5, so I enjoyed it. I didn't like hate it. I just felt it dragged a little bit in the middle, and when I guessed the ending, I was like, oh no, she'll think of something different than that. But no, that's where she went, and it just wasn't like the ending didn't do it for me. But I do think it was an interesting take on the genre, and it was unique. So if you just want something unique and kind of fun and to keep you guessing, then I would suggest it. It just wasn't like overall the best like thriller that I would have read, you know. I didn't find it to blow me away. So that's it, but I did like parts of it. I just had to kind of push myself through that boring middle. So those are my last 4 reads. So a couple that are a little average, and then some that I liked more. And that's it for this video. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!